Hey everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. For those who are new, make sure you click that like and subscribe button because I know that if you wanted to learn more about the food truck business and you're here right now, chances are you want to get started somewhere along the future if you haven't already got started. Today we're going to be discussing the difference between a food truck and a food trailer. Now, granted, when it comes to choosing an option, it's really hard. So I wanted to break all this down for you to inform you what it takes in order to get started with either or and what the difference is between both. This is the perfect video to find out which one is the best fit for you. So there are three main differences when it comes to starting a food truck versus trailer. So let's start with the first one being startup costs. When it comes to choosing a food truck or food trailer, the prices on a food truck is significantly higher than a food trailer. Why? Because the average size of a food truck is anywhere between 20 to 26 feet long, which makes the box really huge. Not only that, there's an engine in it, and so you can drive around and you're able to move around freely without having to haul it around. So that's one of the main reasons why they're super expensive. Not only that, when it comes to food truck builders and having to build out an actual food truck versus a trailer, there's a lot more work and materials that goes into that because it's not just like a flat surface. Sometimes we have to insulate it, sometimes there's weird type of grooves, sometimes there's like ripped out holes, there's things that are just chaos. It can be perfectly shaped as a box, but chances are of that happening are highly unlikely. So sometimes we have to pull things out or put things in, which require more labor. Now, granted, when it comes to food trailers, I have seen bigger trailers than there are food trucks. So I'm not saying that it's impossible, but the average size that I've been seeing a lot of these trailers are anywhere between 12 to 16 feet. If you're going to go any bigger than that, chances are a lot of people just prefer to get a food truck. But again, this is your preference and what you feel is best. You also have to consider that when it comes to getting a food trailer, you have to have a vehicle to haul it around with. Number two is mechanicals. When it comes to the mechanicals and having to get started with a food truck, you have to get a mechanic that can take a look at the food truck. You're not going to have to worry about this with a food trailer. The only thing you would have to consider with a food trailer is making sure that you have good tires and making sure that you're within the weight limit when it comes to the trailer. A lot of people don't realize this, but a lot of food truck builders put too much weight on the food trailer, which in turn causes the trailer to cave in. And you may not know this, but it does happen. Going back into the mechanicals about a food truck, there's a lot of things that you have to consider. Once your food truck breaks down, that's it. It's not like you can just rip your kitchen out and put it into another food truck or trailer. Or maybe you can just disconnect everything and rebuild it, but then that ends up being more costly. So just keep that in mind when you're purchasing a food truck. Chances are of it breaking down can be highly likely versus a food trailer. But again, taking care of your food truck is super important. Getting a mechanic involved to take a look at the engine, the transmission, if there's any issues, these are all things you have to factor in. It is a risk getting a food truck, but if you're going to be hauling everything around with the trailer, you might as well just get a food truck because you're going to be driving around and doing so many different things with it versus just being parked. If you're going to be parked at all times, then you might as well just get a trailer. That way you're only hauling it every once in a blue moon. Another thing about the mechanical side of food trucks is that it's very hard to find parts. I don't know if a lot of people like to discuss this topic or have heard about it or not, but it's very hard to find parts, especially if you have an older step van or food truck. It's hard to find these parts because a lot of people don't produce those parts or they have alternative parts. You have to make sure you're always running, you're constantly driving it around, which I'm pretty sure you will. But if you purchase something and a year later it's been parked the entire time, the chances of the brakes locking is highly likely. And the reason for this is because you're not lubricating the brakes, you're not driving it around, you're not taking care of it. And those are things you have to look into and make sure you do. Parts are very hard to find when it comes to these step vans, especially if they're older versus being in the 2010s or 2000s. It's really hard to get parts for these step vans. So there's always alternative routes, but you have to consider these options when it comes to weighing out your options for food trucks or trailers. Finally, let's discuss insurance. When it comes to insurance requirements, you have auto insurance and you have business insurance. Auto insurance is obviously in case you get into an accident. Business insurance is to protect your business. Both go hand in hand depending on what exactly happens in a certain scenario. Now, I'm not an insurance expert, so I'm not going to give you any advice when it comes to insurance. But what I will say is that at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, do I want to protect my assets? And if the answer is yes, then you know your decision. Keep in mind when it comes to your state, most states require you to have auto and business. Some states may require you to have a minimum auto policy but no business. Other states may just have you have business and no auto. Trailers sometimes don't require you to have auto insurance but may have business insurance. It really just depends. So you have to make sure you do your due diligence and ask your state what are the insurance requirements. That way you're properly covered. In the next couple of weeks, I am going to have a specialist here to talk all about insurance and to help you be more informed when it comes to the insurance. Now, we've discussed the difference between the two, so let's talk about the two main things that no matter what, whether you get a food truck or a trailer, you're gonna need it. First thing you're gonna need, no matter what, whether it's a trailer or a truck, is tag and registration. At the end of the day, both trailer and truck always has to have a VIN number. So if your trailer is purchased from a private owner or you've gotten it from a builder that doesn't contribute a VIN number, this is a huge red flag. Do not purchase it because you have to register this type of vehicle. Even though it does not have a motor in it, it does have to produce a VIN number. The second requirement, whether you have a truck or trailer, is being licensed. No matter what, whether you're serving food out of a trailer or a truck, it's a mobile business and you're serving to the public. You have to be licensed, you have to get it inspected, and these are requirements in order for you to launch your food truck business. If you don't have your licenses and you're serving to the public, you can get in trouble. So please be mindful of that when you're trying to get started. If you haven't had the chance to download my ebook, check the link below so that way you can download my ebook for 50% off until January 31st. It's going to tell you everything that you need to know about getting started with your food truck business. Thank you so much for tuning in to my YouTube channel. If you did like this video, make sure that you comment below for any questions that you may have because I do look forward into doing a Q&A video in the future. And if you haven't already subscribed, please make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. That way you get the ding and the notifications every time I drop a new video. See you all next week.